fertilization, also known as IVF, is a process where people have babies but do not necessarily go have sexual intercourse. So instead of having the normal conjugal act, what they have is the sperm and the egg is either fertilized within the woman's body or fertilized outside her body and then put back into the woman's body to grow and then become a child and all of that.
Is it right to do that?
Well, that's a tough question because of how sensitive that topic is. It is a moral question, really. So it's not a right or wrong in that sense, but it's a morally flawed process because first, you have somebody who masturbates to get the sperm. The man has to masturbate to get the sperm out, and then the woman is pumped with this very, dangerous hormonal drugs or hormones rather. She could be injected with them, and those hormones make her produce more eggs. And as women, we have about 500 eggs in our lifetime. And then you imagine that normally you produce 1 egg per month, but when you take this medicine, you produce 50, 30 eggs, at once, within a month, and then they harvest those eggs. Now the harvesting process is a bit dangerous because some studies have shown that some women actually had some parts of their reproductive system destroyed in the process of that harvesting, because the harvesting is actually a blind operation. So the eggs are harvested, and once the eggs get harvested, they bring them out, and then they use the man's sperm to fertilize the eggs. So you see, you have a fertilization of 20 to 30 eggs or thereabouts. So you have 20 to 30 embryos, already waiting, and all of that is done in a tray or whatever. Now, the church teaches the church has always asked this question, which is, what happens to the other embryos that were fertilized? Because at the end of the day, maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 of those embryos will be put back in the woman's uterus, and she carries them to term. Then along the line, usually, of course, if they put in like 5, usually they put in like 5 because they don't know how many are going to survive. And then maybe along the line they see that 2 or 3 of them are not growing very well, then they remove them. They call it embryo reduction, but that's a fancy word for abortion.
Catholic Faith Forum on TV.
Children are wonderful and beautiful gifts from God that most married couples today would love to have. They're small, cute, funny, and adorable. And that's why some couples go to the extreme to have children. This extreme method is in-vitro fertilization, widely known as IVF. You watched the video earlier and you saw the lady that talked about IVF. Well, guess what? She's here with us at the studio, Miss Chidima Njoku. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Also, she's not the only one here with me. I have Dr. Tessie Okafor. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I'm the director of Foundation for African Cultural Heritage.
Okay.
And I also worked with the Holy See in New York at the United Nations. And yes, I am very much involved with the church and with young people.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. What about you?
I'm a lawyer, and I completed my NYC last year.
Okay.
I'm very involved in the church in the sense that I have always taught doctrinal classes, mostly catechism classes, and I attend a lot of activities that require some kind of formation. So,
okay. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
After this short break, we'll be right back to talk more on IVF.
Is God calling you to support His ministry? Assist the Society for Vocation Support in the training of future Dominican priests and brothers. Donations can be made to the following account details on your screen. For more information, please call the following numbers.
Welcome back. This is still Catholic Faith Forum. Our topic for today is IVF. You said earlier in the video that IVF is a moral issue. And plus again, you're a lawyer and you're so versed in this topic. I want to know why did you take, like, you're so interested in it?
Okay, I'll start from the point that apart from the fact that I'm Catholic, I have received formation over a minimum of about 8 years on different topics in the Catholic Church. You know, and I've been deeply involved in a lot of activities in the Catholic Church. Then the part that says where I'm a lawyer and all of that, well, there's something called moral law. I think St. Thomas Aquinas talked a lot about that. So as much as it is not in any legislation, anything against IVF, I think that more than anything, we should not forget the part that moral law has to play in the development of law eventually. So yes.
Oh, so you think it's moral because of?
I think that IVF is a morally flawed procedure. Yes, because of all the sins that get to be committed in the process of doing IVF, like I explained earlier in the video.
Yes. Dr. Okafor, what do you think? And what do you think about it?
First of all, I think that IVF is really a culture of death.
Oh, okay.
And what makes it immoral is the process, because the end does not justify the means. Even though at the end of the day, a child is being sought and then parents are happy that they have a child, but then how did they obtain that child? So this is what makes it immoral. And again, the law, even though you may say that there is no legislation prohibiting IVF, but that's just an assumption, because the law must intersect with morality and the law must be at the service of humanity. Now, if you look at IVF very closely, you would see that the child is treated as a commodity. So the child is like a do-or-die affair, and in the process, a lot of embryos are frozen, are wasted, are discarded, are experimented on, and it's like a child becomes like a choice and not a wanted being, because by the time the fertilization has occurred, the doctors then begin to determine, okay, let's see the gender, do I want a boy or girl, the eye color, and then all those accidentals begin to inform the choice of parents. And so the child, in essence, is denied that right of being birthed by a mother and a father in a marital union. He's denied that right of conception in a marital union. Rather, what happens is that the child is fertilized in a dish, in a petri dish. And this can result to birth deformities later on in life.
Like, so what kind of deformities?
Well, there are, for instance, with Dolly the sheep, you know what happened? Aging. And then some people have said that children, an experiment carried out in Australia said that children who are birthed as a result of IVF turn out to be infertile in the future.
Wow.
And then tend to have enlarged organs and other deformities. And then again, what makes it morally wrong is the fact that, first of all, the church believes that a union, marriage, the purpose of marriage is unitive and procreative. All right? What IVF does is that it removes the unitive aspect, because you see, the unitive and procreative are so inseparably united, and IVF takes out the unitive and then sees the procreative as a goal to be pursued at any cost, which is what really same-sex couples do. They know that same-sex couples it's an unnatural thing. They can never birth a child, they can never procreate, but then what they do is that they pursue procreation as a goal. They want a child at all costs. The same way the couples who embrace IVF do, you know. And then again, when you think of the process, which involves hyperstimulation of the ovaries, what could happen is that the lady's ovaries can collapse as a result of that hyperstimulation. So apart from the slight discomfort it causes the lady, there are other problems that can ensue
You said
as a result of
slight
it.
discomfort, but
Yeah.
some studies shows that it's a painful procedure.
Yeah.
But you just said slight discomfort.
Yeah, what I said slight I mean, again, there's a wide spectrum which
Okay.
begins with a slight discomfort, which is analogical to what a lady experiences during her menses when she undergoes irritability and what have you. But then what she experiences during her menses is just minute compared to, because it's like 100 times what she goes through during her menses that occurs when those eggs are forcibly extracted as a result of the hyperstimulation, you know, and then in some cases it's actually led to a collapse of the ovaries. So it's grave, it's bad for the woman, it's insensitive to the woman, it's bad for the woman, it's bad for the child, and it's bad for the couple. So it's something that there are health issues here, issues that have to do with happiness, issues that have to do with costs, economic costs, and what have you.
A recent study shows that 40% of younger women, that's those younger than 35, I mean, women younger than 35 years of age have 40% chance of success, like the IVF done on them, 40% chance of success.
Okay.
Then those that are older than 35, it's just 4%. So does it mean that it works on only younger women?
What that is making allusion to is the fact that the woman is hyperstimulated to produce eggs. Now, if you're over 35, how many eggs do you have left? Then if they hyperstimulate you, let's say for a first procedure, how many will they get? How viable are those ones? Because, especially because of how much development is going on, development not in a good sense, there's a the predominance of women are beginning to reach a menopause at an earlier age, and women are finding it more difficult to conceive after maybe 35 or thereabout, unlike the way it was in our grandparents' generation. So because of that, yes, it can make the process less successful, and the rate can be as low as 4%. Yes.
Yeah, and in addition to what she said, another reason is to consider is that many of these statistics are unsupported. You know, they cannot be verified because the process involved in IVF is that it actually circumverts the treatment of fertility. Because the reason why a couple cannot conceive is that they are infertile. But then IVF bypasses that problem. It doesn't try to treat the problem of infertility, but it tries to forcibly create, experiment with the child outside the body of the woman and then implants the embryo in the body of the woman. And because it hasn't treated the underlying cause of infertility, the woman is likely to suffer a series of miscarriages, bleeding, hysterectomy, sometimes even ectopic pregnancy can result as a result of it, or even an eclampsia, which results in high BP. You know, she can have a very high blood pressure. So there are serious health risks because of the process, you understand? And there are alternatives.
Okay.
For instance, we have a NAPRO technology, because the church, when it prohibits something, it always offers you an alternative that is safer for you, which is why I keep telling young people that God is not a fun spoiler. God is not a killjoy. Whatever is not right for us, whatever is morally wrong, is actually bad for us. You know, because IVF is morally wrong, but it's also bad for a human being. So what I was saying is that the woman can have a series of miscarriages as a result of IVF. And then she keeps on trying and failing, and there are other health risks associated with it. So it's actually bad. The alternative is NAPRO technology.
Okay.
Because with NAPRO technology, the Creighton method, what that does, and this is the church trying to find a solution for her loving children, and carried out a lot of medical sciences and discovered an alternative that works with the natural rhythm of our body, which is NAPRO technology. Anyone can read it up, the Creighton method. And so with NAPRO technology, what NAPRO technology does is to treat the underlying problem, the reason why the woman cannot conceive, which is the treatment of the infertility in the woman. And so when that is treated, there is a high likelihood that the woman succeeds in conceiving a baby. And where it is impossible, then the church advises adoption, because a child is not a right. A child is a gift from God.
But so many people nowadays will not like to, like what you just said now, child is a gift. They won't want to, they'll be like, oh, we've been married for years, no child, nothing. What advice can you give to those people?
Well, the advice I can give, I mean, I know it's very painful, you know, you're married, you look forward to having a child, and then you discover that for one reason or the other. I think, first of all, young married couples need to be patient, because what tends to happen is that they're over-anxious. And when you're over-anxious, you're not likely to conceive. So before you even start to go for treatment to find out if I'm infertile, if there's a problem, you need to be patient. Because in England, for instance, young married couples are advised to wait at least 2 years. And then in the 3rd year, they can begin to try out certain tests and find out about their fertility, if there are issues of infertility. And then if there are issues of infertility, I would strongly recommend NAPRO technology, because you want to protect your health, your happiness, your marriage, and you also want to put your money into better use than compromise your health further. You know, and at the same time, you know, commit grave sin, which involves, you know, aborting lives. We have to look at it and call it what it is, because you are discarding and wasting lives.
Thank you, Ma. After this break, we're going to be right back to talk more on IVF. Stay with us.
Catholic Faith Forum on TV.
The question is it worth it that you have killed 20 to 30 or 30 children just to get 1 or 2 or 3? Of course, it's a difficult place to be, you know. But by the time you truly understand what your work is with God, you will understand that nothing in this world actually can define your happiness. Children or no children, wife or no wife, husband or no husband, those things are not defining your happiness. So you'll be more interested in not offending God than in seeking, you know, pleasures. Another question the church also has a problem with is this. Now, you are practically almost like manufacturing children. You know, you are doing all those processes. You know, it takes away from the dignity of that child. You deny the child the opportunity to come out of a loving relationship, because the truth is that love between man and woman is perfectly expressed, or is ultimately expressed by the birth of a child or of children through that love. Now you deny that child that, just bring the child out into the cold. And I mean the cold, I mean pun is intended here, because cold in the sense that the eggs are frozen sometimes, the sperm too, the sperm actually has to be kept frozen so that it doesn't die, you know. So, and I also mean cold in the sense that there's no warmth, not that love, that self-giving, the warmth that the conjugal act brings is not there. You just, you know. So, while we do not, I mean, the church does not maybe ostracize people who have had children through IVF. We cannot deny that there aren't Catholics who have done that. There are Catholics who have done it. There are staunch Catholics who have done it. But the church will always continue to teach like a mother. I mean, if you, as a mother, if you have children and they are doing the exact things that you are saying they shouldn't do, you won't stop being their mother. You continue to talk about it. That's why you have like the average African mother. She will tell you, I will continue to shout anything, blah blah blah. She will say all sorts. You know, that's how a mother be. So that's why the church keeps talking about this, keeps shouting about it, keeps saying, please, please, and please. These things are morally flawed. We don't condemn you. We don't. When you come for confession, they are forgiven. When your children are brought to church, they are baptized. They receive whatever sacraments. Nobody sees them and say, "Come, IVF child." No, nobody does that. You know, they are treated like every other child, and everyone moves on. But the church needs people to understand that these things, even if you are indulging in, it's just like the way the 10 Commandments are. Even if you are stealing, you are lying, you are doing whatever, the most important thing is that the information is out there. you have been told, you know, so that you will know how to now address it when you know, oh, see, Lord, I have fallen, this, and all of that. And then again, I think people should also think about this from the point of feminism. Now, there are many blocks of feminism, but me, I don't come from that, from the wrong blocks. I'm looking at it like this: how are you feminist and you promote IVF? Now, all the dangers that come with IVF, or at least 97% of the dangers that come with IVF, affect the woman. Those hormonal drugs that the women take, those hormonal drugs that women take to produce more eggs than normal, have been linked to cancer by research. And these things, and these days we have a prevalence of cancer and all sorts of diseases coming up these days. And many of them have been linked to these processes that we are doing, the IVF, the artificial family planning, and all of those things. So how are you a woman and you say, I want equality, I want to be treated well, but on the other hand, you are saying, my body is my body, I can do whatever I want with, and then you are destroying the same body.
Is God calling you to support His ministry? Assist the Society for Vocation Support in the training of future Dominican priests and brothers. Donations can be made to the following account details on your screen. For more information, please call the following numbers.
Catholic Faith Forum on TV.
Welcome back. We've been talking about IVF, and this is still Catholic Faith Forum. Before we went on break, Ma, you were talking about NAPRO technology. Yeah. I want to know if there are other means of achieving birth apart from that, and why is it not popular?
Okay, let me start from the end. Now, NAPRO technology is not popularized because some people are benefiting financially from IVF.
Okay.
So because of that, there is a compromise. And that's why NAPRO technology is not even taught in medical schools, despite the high success rate it has over and above IVF. So there is an economic tank to it. Then aside from that, unfortunately, the more we depend on IVF in Nigeria, where children are very important to almost every family and it's a good thing, the more we depend on IVF, the more we're going to be dependent on pharmaceutical drugs. Because when the side effects and problems ensue, then that person becomes increasingly dependent on hospitals and pharmaceutical drugs. So you can see that there is a problem there.
Well, but is it that NAPRO technology, is it that it's more natural than...
NAPRO technology is natural.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't involve any side effect, and it has a higher success rate.
Well, does it involve surgery?
No, it doesn't involve surgery.
Okay.
No, it involves treatment. All right, treatment of the problems of infertility. And in the course of that treatment, many women actually birth. I know so many babies that have been born as a result of NAPRO technology. Wow. So I think we need to start asking society and probably our government deeper questions why NAPRO technology is not being taught in medical schools and why we want a good number of the population who are infertile to remain dependents for life. And of course, it's unfair to the children who are born even though those children have every dignity of a human being, it's also unfair to them because problems will crop up later on in life.
Okay.
Now, your other question was, are there other methods? I would tell you that it's interesting to know that sometimes anxiety and pressure can actually stop that child from being conceived. And I know cases where couples adopt, and then the moment they adopt and relax, because that adopted child has a way of bringing in a lot of calm, a lot of peace, a lot of happiness into that family. Once they become emotionally and physically settled, they tend to conceive their own child shortly afterwards. So adoption in itself is a therapy. It's a therapy. And NAPRO technology is about the only method that I know, because medical science has done a lot of experiment and is working for people. But I do know that adoption does help. And I do know that nourishment, because many times mothers, fathers, especially young couples, are not properly nourished, you know. And when you lack certain nutrients, it can also affect conception, you know. So that's why some people would tell you that we use herbs, we use this. But at the end of the day, it's actually to make sure that you are getting all the nourishments you need from all the 6 groups of food. And when that happens, your womb will have the right environment for that child. And a lot of prayer, obviously, you know, because miracles do happen. But why would you want to compromise your health, your happiness, and everything, you know, just to buy a child and make a child a commodity to be obtained by all means? You know, and at the end of the day, end up offending God and compromising your health. I mean, it's just unthinkable.
Thank you. Ms. Chidima, she spoke earlier about the children having deformities, malfunction. Who do you think should be held responsible for this malfunction?
Well, I think that all the parties involved should be held responsible, but more importantly, the scientists involved, because...
Do you think so?
Yes, because a lot of times, the parents are not told about these things. And the truth is, when you're desperate, when you're looking for something, the last thing you want to hear is one of those is for the person to tell you, oh, when this child is born, the birth weight may be a bit lower than normal, or this child may develop a psychological issue eventually. You don't want to hear that. And again, these people even need to make their money, so they won't even tell you that. They won't even give you the chance to make the choice to say, oh, now that I've thought about these things, I don't think, no, they won't give you that chance. Theirs is, oh, we can do this for you, no problem. You know? So it's like a market.
Dr. Kappa, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, she made a very important point, which is that they never tell women the truth. So there's like a conspiracy of silence. And regarding who should be held responsible, well, I'll tell you what, in many of the developed countries, there are so many litigations following IVF, because we've had cases whereby the doctor tells the woman, you are going to conceive triplets, but one of them has a deformity. So we're going to terminate the life of the one that has a deformity, and in the process they end up terminating the life of the one that does not have any deformity. And so there have been legal cases ensuing out of that. There have been cases where the man is found to be infertile, and then semen is taken from another man, and then the woman, then it's implanted in the woman, who thinks that she's expecting their baby, and then it turns out that a black woman conceives a white baby, or vice versa, a white woman conceives a black baby, and then litigation, of course. So there are so many problems, and I think this conspiracy needs to stop, because when you look at other things that are morally wrong in the eyes of the church, you'll see that there's a lot of conspiracy of silence. When you think of, talk about contraceptives, for instance, nobody's talking about the side effects of contraceptives. You talk about abortion, nobody's talking about the moral, the psychological, physical, and post-abortion syndrome many women are going through. You know, nobody's looking at the side effects. People are just looking at that immediate relief, immediate gratification, and it's all shrouded in lies and euphemism. So people need to know the truth. People need to understand that what is morally wrong is not good for you. It's also ethically wrong, socially wrong, and there are repercussions, a very high price to pay for these things.
Thank you, Dr. Tessie Okafor, for coming. Thank you, Chidima Njoku, for coming. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed this episode on IVF. For more questions, if you have other things to say, if you have anything to add, you can visit us on our social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram at CFF on TV. Keep being saints and jeans and shit till we come your way next time. Bye.